Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. If it's Friday, it is the CEO series. Today, we're honored to host a true luminary in the world of media and advertising, Orlando Reece. Orlando has been at the forefront of driving global expansion, leveraging decades of experience to explore new advertising frontiers. His visionary approach has transformed companies, reshaped industry paradigms, from his transformative leadership at Pride Media to his innovative strategies at Teleunivision and beyond. So, with that, I want to welcome my dear friend, Orlando. How are you?
Ron, it's so nice to be here. It's so great to see you again. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been a while. We were co-workers at one point in time, which we were discussing before we went live.
Yes.
I we always like to start the show because when you read a bio, it's here,
Yeah.
but it started from here. So we always like to start the show with walking us through your career journey, giving us kind of a synopsis of what that was like to get to where you are today.
Well, thank you for all again for, and also thank you for the first question. It's really interesting. I think career journeys are like water. They move down a path and they can also veer off of a path, which I find are the best ways. I
Yeah.
did not want to start off in advertising sales. That was not what I thought I was going to be good at. I really thought I'd be like, good evening, tonight, the news, Orlando Reece. I thought that's what I was going to be. And I started my path at NBC as a page, thinking I was going to get into the news division. And one day I was just sitting outside of the cafeteria and the head of sales walked by and he was just started to talk to me. He saw me in my page outfit and he told me, hey, you should come up and intern with us for a little bit. And that's how my career path started. Was not something I thought about, and I have loved it ever since. I've been fortunate to work for major companies from NBC to Disney to MTV networks back in the day when MTV was 100% music,
Yes.
and places like Martha Stewart, where you and I worked. I've gotten to work at places like, Everyday Health to make sure people's health and wellness were going on, as well as
Mm.
places like Pride Media, the largest LGBTQ media company. So I've been really fortunate to work at great places, and I'm currently working at Business Insider, the leading global news and organization site across business, tech, and technology. So very excited about how my path has gotten to Business Insider right now.
Wow. So that gentleman that walked past you and you had that conversation to kind of pull you into from the page business to getting into what you're in now, did you foresee that you would continue in this trajectory?
You know what's
Or
funny is the only reason I think the man stopped was I was having a bad day. I worked for a news anchor out in the Los Angeles area who there's a movie called Swimming with Sharks. And I was the abused assistant. And I was just having a really, really bad day. And I'd have to go give a tour and had to go put on my outfit. So I was just really sitting outside, kind of getting myself together. And I think this gentleman just saw in my face, like, hey, here's a young guy having a really bad day. And that goes to why people should always look at, especially when you see young people, is like, sit down, talk with them, see what's going on, like help them out. And his little words, seeing an executive stopping to talk to me and then saying, hey, your next rotation, you should come up and work with us in the ad sales area, changed my trajectory of where I thought I was going to go.
wow, that's a strong learning point. Someone saw something in you and they were able to reach back. So when you think about leadership development, which I do a lot of working with leaders across the globe, that's being aware of the surroundings
Correct.
because that person could have been so caught up in his issues or her issues that they could have walked right past you. And maybe you would have been the president of NBC by now. But anyway, talk to us about awareness as to how you were able to pull that out. That person was able to see that in you.
I think part of it's not only that did he see it within me, I think you're seeing a young person who's basically right out of school, and you're realizing they've got potential. And, you're looking at them going, they're going to have a bad day. They're going to have tough days, especially when you're starting off. Your first couple of jobs, you're not running a company. You are really learning the bottom and learning everything. And I think it's just seeing that potential in people and saying, hey, try this, try that. I always say to young people who work for me, just because you're in the ad sales or because you're in marketing or because you're in production, that's the only place to go. Try a couple different areas, learn different skills, see what really works for you, because everything you think looks really good may not be exactly what works for you. So, get the area. Like if you love math and you really want to be in like a data and now analytics person, kind of get into it. But data analytics can also be in advertising. It could be in media about how you place things. It goes all over. And that's why I say you're part of that stream, but all of a sudden you can kind of veer off and start your own path doing many different things.
So that's exploration, explore what you're looking at.
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of young people and they're frustrated because I think in a lot of cases, schools prepare them for the trajectory. We're going to hear step 1, step 2, and that ladder goes up and wherever that ends up at. And then when they get there, when they get, as you called it, veering off, I call it detours, and coming back and try and, reconfigure it to do what we have to do to move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think everyone gets so set. And I think the tough thing is when you're in school, all of us did that. You did that. I did that. You just want to get out. You're like, I need to make money. I need to do this. And you forget that, those first 5, maybe up to 10 years are a part of your whole learning experience to figure out what it is you like. What are you good at? Where should you go? What should you do? And it's okay to move and learn and try different jobs. You don't have to stay in a job, and you don't have to stay in a job, especially if you don't like it or you're not being treated well or you're not learning. I think every job should be about learning. And, I did not set out in my career to say I would be a CEO of one company or I would run global sales at one company or I'd run sales. I set out to do really good work at each job I was doing. And that good work led to something else. And I think the tough thing is, as I always say to young people, is don't go out and think, I need to have this job. It's go out and whatever job you're doing, do really good work at it. Even if you don't love it, do really good work at it, because that job may help you get the next job. That person you're working for may say, look, I see you have a passion for something else here. I'm going to introduce you to da-da-da-da-da, as opposed to, oh, I don't like it here. I'm just going to sit here and just do this and give basically my minimum. I always say give 110%, put it all in, do it, learn from it, and enjoy it. And honestly, I look back at my career and I laugh because I did not ask for my promotions. And I think asking promotions are really good, but I never asked for my next promotion. I did a really good job, and either my bosses and the people I call who are on my board, I never call them mentors, but the people who are on my board said to me, you've done a really good job here. I want to move you into this. And I'm like, okay. Then I would hear from somebody else, here's a job open. It fits you. You really should try to go for it. And I might go for it. And there I get it. I never sat there and said, I want to be the global head of sales. I want to be this. It's just happened because I feel like I've done a really good job in my career.
There's a lot of similarities, but as you talk through your career progression, I started in sales for IBM. And I always say, from my side, I think sales is a great starting point because it gets in front of people. Rejection. That was an older salesperson told me. He said, let me tell you something, kid. He said, the sales doesn't begin until the person says no. That's when you find out who the real salesperson is. So as I was moving, transitioning, and all of these kinds of things, I really, really enjoyed it because I enjoyed the people side of it. But getting laid off and all those kinds of things throughout, I just kind of transitioned into something else. But those skills was a foundation. Did you see that from your side, getting into sales, that although you stayed in there, the skills from sales?
Yeah, I think I saw a lot of great skills. I also saw that sales, which is what you said at the beginning, brought in a lot of different things, right? It's usually for the company, the revenue driver. Yeah. So it's a place where, when you are working and you're driving revenue, it's harder for people to say, why do we need to let go of the sales, right? Because they're driving revenue. It's a place that touches every part of a company, no matter what it is. Because at the end of the day, that company's producing something that the salespeople are out selling. So you get to work with every division, and which is really kind of fun. So, I've seen all of that by being in sales, but at the best part about being in sales for me were the people I've gotten to work with, the people I've gotten to meet and gotten to learn over my career.
Just want to do a shout out to John Self, one of our frequent listeners. He says that 1 in 9 people in America are in sales, and so are the other 8.
Yeah, John, love that. John, great call. John, I may have to steal that from you.
Yeah, isn't that cool? That's cool. So, as you were going through those stories that you were talking through, there was always an angle from someone saw something. You said, I never really asked for a promotion because someone saw the work that I was doing. Talk to us concerning the role of leaders in an organization, specifically with the different demographic today who grew up in a digital age and all those kinds of things, maybe looking to move fast or whatever it is. What role does leaders play today?
Look, I think leaders always play a huge role. First, they've got to reach back. They've got to look and develop talent. Like I look across my organization and I look at the talented young people I do have. I've got to make sure that I'm reaching back and making sure myself, my SVPs, my VPs below are always kind of nurturing our talent to grow, learn. The tough thing is that I always say is you're not just nurturing your talent to grow and learn within your own organization. You're nurturing that talent to grow in other places because they may leave you to go somewhere else, but somebody else hopefully has nurtured somebody that's coming to you. So I'm really big about reaching back and looking back. I think I said a little earlier, I'm also big. I don't love the word mentor and mentee because I think it can go both ways. I love the word board. I think everyone needs a board. And the reason I call it a board is you should have people across the area. They're going to see you at your best and at your worst, and that they're going to help you, as opposed to the mentor that just says, hey, here's what I'm always doing, and you're looking up toward. It's like, I want to have a board. I think your board should be no more than 4 or 5 people that you've either worked with, that have been your bosses before, or people that you've worked with, could be at your same level, could even be below. And you should always keep them in your orbit and use them. I look across my board. I talk to my board constantly. I always find out what they're doing. I always tell them what I'm doing. I ask them for guidance on certain things. And I think your board should be as diverse as a company's board, right? People forget the reason companies have boards are so that they can get different thoughts to help that CEO move forward. But people always say, I need a mentor. I need to follow someone. You don't need to just follow someone. You need to also have people that are help and guide you. But to also go back to your question about, reaching back and how do we help people? I think we've gone into this new digital age where everyone's working from home. So it gets harder to actually see and work with young people. I have asked my team to be in 2 days a week. That helps the camaraderie amongst the team, that helps people to work together, socialize. That also helps me to see, because I go in 4 days a week, and there's days where I'm the only person in the office, but I at least get to see, those days, what people are doing. On those off days, I love to see who pops in, because you know what? They get more time with me. And I think what people have not learned is that we're all so scheduled now. And when I started off in this business, I could just walk into my boss's office and hear them on a phone conversation. I could learn that way. But because you're scheduled and we're all on video conferences, you can't do that. If you and I are supposed to have a private conversation and you see a third party on there, you're like, who's this person that's on here? What's going on? So I think people need to kind of understand that part of work from home is great. I don't think, do we ever need to go back to 5 days a week having everyone? Probably never. But I still think people need to learn from people around them, socialize, and learn to work with their teams.
You mentioned board of directors. I think of all the people I've talked to, I've heard maybe 2 or 3 people use that phrase, because I always say, what does your board look like? And so we were talking earlier in our days at Martha Stewart, who became a member of my so-called board was Charles Koppelman.
Yeah.
After he left, I left first, and then he left, and he was no longer on the board. But he and I always stayed in touch.
Correct.
And there was a leadership development project I was working on, and they said, "Have you ever had any board experience you worked with?" And I sent him to Charles, and Charles gave me this glowing review, and I ended up getting that big project.
Correct. And that's why I'll say keep these people close. Funny you say Charles. So one of my board members is Wenda Millard. You may remember her at Martha's Story.
Oh, yes, I do.
Yeah, she was, she's head of global sales. She ran Yahoo. She's done great things. Wenda's now retired. She is still on my board. The woman's got a Rolodex that's huge, but I don't use her for her Rolodex. I use her because I love her mind. I love just to ask her a question. Or bring her up to speed or talk with her. And, I use a lot of other people who I've worked for, a guy named Alvin Bowles, who is an amazing leader who runs US sales for Meta. He was the CEO of Grab Media. Alvin is on my board. Alvin's a person I can always turn to, ask questions, learn from. Just great people. I'm just very fortunate to have these great people. And I hope that people use me on their board. I think I'm on a few people's boards as well.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned the mentor mentee, because we always hear that in that parlance of the mentor, the mentee guiding this, and you someone to bounce it off of. But I think the concept of the board is a little higher level. And if you think of that in the context of the organization, the board is where we bounce things off of inside of an organization. The board gives us insight based on what they've been through, a case study or whatever it is. But in the end, we all grow as a result of that.
Correct. But I also think, you can still have a mentor if that's what you really need, somebody within your company that's helping to guide you. But I think having multiple people around, people you've worked with in the past, even your colleagues, really can help you grow.
Just want to do another shout out to Jim Moy, who's based in Washington, big time attorney, big shot attorney. He hates when I call him that, a big shot attorney based in Washington, D.C. He was my neighbor when I lived in Saudi Arabia. So he's a part of a person that we always chat back and forth, as well as John Self. So as you talk about your trajectory, walk us through a challenge that you've had, how you faced it, and how you were able to interpret that, navigate it, or whatever you needed to do to get around it.
Yeah, look, I think in all of our careers, we've had huge challenges. I'll just use a recent example. My last challenge, 2023 was a terrible year in the advertising market. Clients were not spending. After COVID, clients were spending and people were going and numbers were crazy. And everyone kept thinking we were going to keep growing. And last year, everyone fell off the cliff. And so I had a challenge of how do you motivate your team when everyone's not hitting goal? People are not getting to where they need to be. They're not achieving what they really thought. The sales are down. Everything is not happening. So last year was one of my most challenging years, and it's the same year as 2008 was, which was the year of the crash here in the United States. And it was taking people who had never been through all of that, and telling them how to kind of spend their time, spend time with their clients. Even if their clients are not spending, go out, see them, make sure that we are the person that they're thinking about. I know we're all not making money, but let's get there. Let's figure out what we need to do. We still have to drive revenue, but we still right now are in a very tough spot. So last year was, like I said, was a really challenging year for me. And I spent the year really just fostering innovation, working with my team, figuring out better ways to go to market, all of us just really kind of coming together and just figuring out how we get to the next spot. And it's kind of really has paid off, because as we got through fourth quarter, we started to see that thaw, and we were right there. When clients started coming back with budgets, we were right there to start receiving those budgets. We've had a really great first quarter here, which, shocked us. We were like, wow, we came out of first quarter good. We're heading into a really great second quarter already. So it's just like when you're going through a challenging time, find the things that are the issues, find the ways that you can keep growing, refocus your team, get them back to being focused. Yes, it's going to be a bad year. Yes, it's going to be very tough, but let's get out there. Let's keep doing what we should be doing.
Yeah. John just posted a interesting side note. He said that New York Times columnist David Brooks and Mark Cuban said that liberal arts degree will become a broader perspective, more so than the specialized degree, say in business or whatever it is. And he wants your thoughts on that.
I saw that pop up, and I wanted to say, I have a liberal arts degree with an economics major. I shouldn't have been anywhere into this kind of business, right? Because I didn't specialize in something. I think a liberal arts degree is great. I got a liberal arts degree from College of William and Mary. And I think it made me broad. It made me understand a lot of different things so that I could go into what I'm doing. I think they're great. I think that where people should start to specialize their degrees is if they go get a master's. I see a lot of my friends' kids right now. They're going to business schools. One's at University of Texas in Austin, and she's going to business, and she just wants to be in business. But I'm like, there's so many other things that you could be doing and learning than just that business part. You could be learning the arts, which helps us all. Like, we all spend our days being very creative, right? You create this amazing show, and part of that's because you've taken your mind and had to open it up because you're not saying you're very business. you also understand the economics. You also understand selling. But if you just focus on one thing, I think it's going to be much harder. And I think young people today are focusing so much on one thing than saying, hey, I really should be a little bit more open. I really should learn a little bit about everything. And then if I want to, my next degree, maybe I will focus on business. Maybe I will focus on something else. But I also think for young people today, degrees have gotten more expensive than when we were in school. So, you look at the costs of what you're doing, and it's a very tough cost analysis. Do I go to school and spend $400,000 for my next 4 years and be in debt for about $250,000 to $300,000, depending on where you come out of, or are you fortunate that your parents could pay for it? Or do I kind of learn and do something else and learn as I go? It's a very, very tough choice young people have to make.
I saw this. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I saw a pop-up the other day that said the average cost of a 4-year degree is topping out at about $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, and then you think starting salaries coming out, you have a load on your back that you're going to carry for a long period of time, which inhibits growth and everything else, the economy and everything.
I hate to joke it, and I'm not trying to be mean to this client, but when you see the Super Bowl being played at SoFi Stadium, and you're like, wait, isn't that a place that gives people loans for their student loans? You realize the amount of money that's in this. It is a business, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a good business, and people have to do it. But when you talk to friends, when I talk to friends who are in their 40s and they're saying that they're still carrying a student loan, they've got their home mortgage there and they're still carrying a student loan. You're like, wow, this is really, it is a business. And those student loans might be $200 or $400 a month. It seems small. And the interest rates on them are much smaller than your credit cards, right? Great. But still, you're carrying these debts for a long, long period of time.
That's why I was so, I was hoping that the government was going to do something about it, because it's now in discussion, student debt. But you go to some countries, you go to 4-year colleges for free. It doesn't cost you money.
All my friends in the UK, Netherlands, all these great, countries, that's part of it. Yes, they've got a different system of doing things. Yeah. Ours is business. And, I looked down, there was a school down the street from William & Mary. Now, look, William & Mary is, if you look at it, is older than Harvard. It was founded 1 year before Harvard. It was an old school, but there's a school down the street called Christopher Newport. Great little school, felt like a more local school. If you go to that school today, its tuition is probably about $15,000 to $20,000 less than William & Mary. So these are businesses that, schools have become businesses. And so I say to young people, if you are going to go into a university or a college, you need to make sure it's the right business you're getting into, right? Because it is a business.
So as you were talking through, you're going to school for a liberal arts degree. I'm going to school to get the MBA, and I'm going to focus on business. I thought back to a story for a young lady that worked for me, Maggie Mistel, who worked for us at Martha Stewart. And Maggie told me the story of why she was an accountant, because her uncle or somebody in the family was an accountant, and all these accountants were around her. Get a job as an accountant. You never have to worry about a job. Got to be an accountant. 1 year into postgraduate, and said, I can't do this forever. And knew then that maybe this was not what she was chosen to do. And she used that as a purpose. And she built a business around careers and how to counsel people, coach people through career choices and whatnot. Because we go to school, we're focusing on that bullseye, and we get the package and everything. And then we realize that 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years in, we're not happy.
Yeah. And that's why, as we started this conversation, we said, it's okay to try different jobs when you get out of school. You've come in, you think I should be here, and you can kind of do different things. Learn different skills. Use those skills to get you to the next job. Try different things. And then you're going to see what you're good at and what you love. And look, you want to do something you're going to be passionate about, because you're going to be doing this for the next, 30, 40, maybe even 50 years of your life, depending on what you want to do. I love what I do. I look at myself that I've been fortunate to have great people I've worked for, great mentors, great boards, great friends, great people I've worked with like yourself. But you know what? Soon it's going to be my time to hang up my hat and pass it on to the next generation. It's like, I've enjoyed what I've done. I've worked for great companies. I've got to see companies go from, I always like to say, when I got to MTV, it was a group of hip, having fun individuals that realized they had a business. So when I got there, we were still having a business, but it was all about fun. Now it's a
Yeah.
corporation. It's under
Yeah.
part of, Paramount, and it runs like a corporation. Things do change. So find those companies that you get to learn with and grow with. Find those companies that are corporation that you get to learn with and grow with, and then find that hybrid. And that's where I am at Business Insider. I love what I get to do. I get to work with amazing people. Our CEO is so talented and so smart, but she lets us all run it. I feel like I get to work for a company that feels like a startup that does really, really well. And it brings me back to my beginning days where you're just having fun, but you're also producing great product.
Yeah. Yeah, that startup culture, as you talk through that, how do you create the aura of that inside of an organization? I read a book a while back during COVID. It was called Dying for a Job. And I thought about that when you mentioned, I enjoy my work. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy coming to work. And this one of the stats was there's more heart attacks on a Monday morning than any other day of the week, which I've always found to be insightful. The stress of Sunday night. And then you think about the Sunday night act. How do you feel on Sunday? I just arrived here back in Dubai, 14-hour flight. I got here, shower, took a nap, and I did 3 calls last night. Was it work? It wasn't work because it's fun. And when you get to that point that you really enjoy what you do, I never really work. I just get up and have fun.
Yeah.
Stress, but it's totally different.
Stressful. Correct. But the word work makes it sound like, you're out there. None of us are doing, this work that is I hate to use the word, like in my world, I am not saving a life. I'm actually helping journalists bring great stories forward, which is what I love, but I'm not saving a life. But at the end of the day, I always look at work as like on Sunday nights, I'm never stressed for the next day. I'm actually ready to go. I say, find your passion. Do what makes you happy. Find something that you enjoy doing. On the weekends, if I do some work, I don't look at it as like, oh my God, I have to do this. I'm looking at it as like, I need to kind of catch up on this. I know that I'm flying to London on Sunday, right? People will be like, well, that's taking away your Sunday. I'm like, nope, it's okay. Flying to London on Sunday. I'm going in the morning because I like the day flights. But you know what I'm going to do? I've got reviews to do. So my whole team is going to get reviewed on that 6-hour flight to London. I will use my time wisely. But I always say to people, use your time wisely no matter what. Because during the day, if you need to cut out of work. Go see your kids, play soccer. Go do something. But just enjoy what you do. Because if you don't enjoy it, find something you have a passion for.
Exactly. Yeah. So you talked about that flying routine. Before my flights, I have a reading folder. I have everything that I want to read. I prefer reading off paper than just the digital piece. Yeah. And I had my reading list and I was fine. I did that for maybe 2 hours into the flight, 8. Yeah. And then I took a nap and then I woke up and did some work again. It was
exactly.
Fine.
Yeah. What's funny is you say that you have the paper. A lot of people love the digital. I always go, you can get on a flight and it's supposed to have Wi-Fi and it cuts out and you can't get it. So I do the exact same thing. I take everything paper printed too, and I just start to read it. And then I get on my computer just in case the Wi-Fi cuts out, because there are many flights where you're like, don't worry, I'll get that to you. And you get on and they're like, for some reason our Wi-Fi is down. It's not going to get booted. And you're like, oh, but so I always make sure I have my backups. I always have a printed thing I can kind of go through and do at the same time.
Yeah, I pull up with my markers. I've got everything that's highlighted, and then I'm making notes as to what I'm going to do when I get off the flight. So it's fine as we work through these kinds of things.
Yeah, they're going to probably call us old school, Ron. You know that people are going to call us. I understand that. Say, you guys are a little old school, but I still think that sometimes paper is still a good thing to have.
Yeah, I still get my Sunday subscription to the New York Times.
Yeah.
Not as thick as it used to be, but I still get it because it's something I enjoy doing this as opposed to scrolling and doing this.
And scrolling, yeah.
So it's kind of serves as a backup. So with all of you've got your fingers into so many pies. You've got sales, you've got managing people, you've got a global perspective. You're traveling how do you take time for you? What does your mental wellness look like? How do you step back and decompress
Well, that's funny. I think everyone needs you need some kind of hobby, and you need something that kind of does, people go, what's a hobby? And I don't think a hobby has to be, I'm going to physically garden. You need some time for yourself. I've got a house upstate. I usually go up there on Thursday nights. I didn't go this weekend because I'm flying out Sunday. But when I get upstate, I feel like I'm in a different world and I get to really take some time to relax. In the winters, there's a ski resort near my house. I go skiing. In the summers, I love to work out in the garden, love to relax, love to go for hikes. I just love to enjoy. I always say you need to make some time for yourself because we do work more than 8 hours a day, right? We work all the time. I work for an amazing boss. I don't mind if she calls me at 9 because at 9 o'clock, sometimes we both got these great ideas and we can have a 30-minute conversation and get everything done. And we don't have to talk for another 2 or 3 days, right? So It's like, but you have to find time. You have to find that balance with you and your boss of how you're going to work, but you also have to find time for yourself. And I usually, my weekends are part of my time for myself. My evenings, I try to make time for myself. I try to figure out what I'm doing when I'm in the city like I am now. I try to get out and enjoy the city, go see a play, go to great restaurants, do some great stuff. But when I get out of the city, I feel like that is my relaxation. And I kind of just really enjoy being upstate.
Yeah. When I was in New York for maybe 3-4 weeks or whatever it is, and as I commuted in one day, and then as I was leaving, coming back to Penn Station and getting on the train, and it was like I was going through a decompression chamber when I came out of the tunnel because I'm out.
Yeah.
But then here's what was a thought of mine. How did I do this 5 days a week? In that commute, in that traffic, when there was traffic, people traffic, and never gave it a thought. And now you go in for 1 or 2 days and you're like exhausted leaving.
Yeah, I don't know how people did it. It's also very funny. I don't know if you've watched dinners. Dinners in New York used to be at 8 o'clock. They are now at 6. If you are taking a client out for dinner, everyone says 6 o'clock, right? People want to be home by 9 o'clock at the latest. And that's a whole shift. That is a whole cultural shift over from 4 years ago. Because 4 years ago, you would have never said to a client, do you want to go to dinner at 5 o'clock? They'd have looked at you like you were crazy because they were working until 6 or 7, and then they were like 7:30 cleaning stuff up and need their half hour to go. Now it's kind of like you get that. And I think, look, there's good and bad things that happened out of COVID. One of those good things is it told people how work could and should be. There are companies that are all remote. There are companies who are back 5 days. And there are companies who create a great hybrid model. I think each company needs to determine what works for them and what there's perfect flow. But at the same time, people were now able, while they were during COVID, to spend time with their families, their friends. They were able to be home at 6 o'clock in time for a kid's soccer game or something. And I think those are the great things that the world got to take a pause and realize that our business didn't really all suffer and we were still able to do things. But at the same time, I also want to make sure, as we started this conversation, by saying we still reach back and we still help young people. Because if I sit at home, I can't help people unless I get on a screen with them. And you can, as I like to always say, when I either walk down with my boss, who we're in a great open floor plan, and she sits next to me, but if I walk down to a meeting, I can grab someone. And for that 2 minute I'm walking across the floor, I can have a conversation with them better than if I'm trying to find time on my schedule. Because if I look down at my schedule, it is like every half hour is nearly booked up, except for that time where my assistant is so smart, where she gives me back an hour every day. She finds an hour block. So I can kind of like get myself back together and do all the stuff that I need to do. So I just think it's like getting people back and doing things is a really good part, but getting that time, to answer part of that question again, is you just need to find time and figure out the time for yourself and what makes you happy.
So you talked about the structure you have with your team. Would I have the option for choosing my days? How does flexibility work inside of an office as you're back in New York? And I noticed I was reading an article the other day that the landlords through Cranes was talking about the landlords are really in a flux now because the buildings are not being used. Half the floors are empty.
Yeah.
How do you guide that in a team of people? Is it flexibility I can choose, or is it mandated? You said 2 days a week. What are your thoughts on how we can move beyond the next phase of this?
Yeah, so I do a mandate. I know it sounds hard, but I say Tuesdays and Thursdays, we are in the office. And that gives people that time. Like more meetings can happen, go see clients, and as salespeople, we should be in no matter what. If our client needs us on Monday, you should be in on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It doesn't matter. But Tuesdays and Thursdays, I know everyone on my team will be in. Other parts of our organization have different days that they come in, like the editorial staff likes to come in on Wednesdays, but different people come in at different times. I like to have my team in on Tuesdays. I mandate those days because if you give them a flexible time, the tough part that happens is that people are crossing over and they're not getting to see each other. So I want people in Tuesdays and Thursdays, but the office is open Monday through Friday, and I'd love to see people in any day that they want to come in.
Okay. You're in a business that has been severely disrupted. I was listening to a podcast yesterday about someone that owned a family-owned small-town newspaper, and he sold that newspaper, and now he's getting into politics, and the media is being disrupted. You look at layoffs, you look at, I call them detours. You know, you use you use it as veer off. How do you stay abreast of all the technology and all of the things that's happening around you, because you're in a highly disrupted industry?
Yes. I mean, it is very hard. I think from when I started in this business to where it is now, everything is changing constantly. And I think you've got to be smart of how much information you take in, as well as where you get your information, your news and information. But I think the biggest thing is, look, we are in a new AI world, and it's not going to change. And we've got to kind of go with it. It's part of that stream. You're not going to fight against it. You're not going to swim against that current. You've got to kind of flow with that current, learn about it, use it, and learn to use it. I try to make sure that my teams right now, every week we have something, how AI is disrupting our advertising sales world, what's going on, what our clients are doing. We try to talk about those kind of issues. So we try to keep ourselves abreast. But I think it's by sharing, because look, there's no way I or you or any of the listeners out here can kind of get all that information. You've really got to kind of pull your teams together and spend time sharing it to kind of stay abreast, not only on AI, but everything that's happening.
Everything around you. Yeah.
And that's why on Tuesdays, I do what we have our Rev It Up sessions. And then we also have our sales meeting sessions, so that we all can kind of come together and talk about these kind of things, talk about these issues, come as either the overall sales org or just as the sales team, not with the marketing and or ops or all that, to talk about ideas and move things forward.
So how do you stay informed? Because when the technology, someone's trying this, someone's trying that. So that entails a lot of, is it reading? Is it webinars? Is it what? How does Orlando stay above the fray, if you could call it that, of this disruption? Because you're taking that, flipping it around and bringing it back to your team and your industry.
Yeah. You want my honest truth? I call it just going back to your board and your friends, because I'm sharing with my friends and they're sharing with me. It is that conversation. It's because you can read a lot about something and still not fully understand what it is. It is having conversations. I try to make time, every week where I talk to 3 or 4 other heads of sales in different industries. Ad sales in television, ad sales in print, ad sales in radio, hear what they've got going on. I got friends across the board in these organizations, and I try to keep up with them and just, spend a half hour just catching up. And I hear what they're saying, and I give them our bits of information. So it is those actual conversations. I think as we move more and more into a digital age, those conversations are being lost. That's why this is great. Us having a conversation gets you much further. I think I said that earlier on. When they're young people in my office, I can actually have a conversation with them walking someplace. It's still about conversation. No matter how good AI is going to be, it's still going to be about a conversation. Everything is going to be people learning and talking with each other and sharing their ideas. We're still humans, right? We do not have a plug-in that we could just plug in and get all that data. We still have to learn, understand, ask questions, go back and understand. And some of us learn very quickly, and some of us take a little bit more time. I always laugh. I was that BC student at school, right? I did well, but I also loved having conversations and going out. And I still love having conversations today.
Yeah. Want to do a quick shout out to some people joined us late. Peter Piccinini always listens in he's down in New Jersey, as well as Shanna Barton agreed to one earlier comment that you made. As we begin the process of closing out, I want to ask you to reflect on your career. And so when you look back on the veers, as you talked about, I call them detours. Which achievements, plural, would you be most proud of, and why?
Wow, that's a good question. Because you look at your career and you just think there's so many great things I've done. So I would start back at the Disney company. I was tapped to run a team and build a team from scratch that we literally called Disney Unlimited, which took all the properties across Disney and allowed our consumers to come in and buy us from one place. And
Okay.
it was really amazing to build that team, build not only the team, build how we go to market, build how we work with partners, how we would look, everything, the logos. It was really great to build out a team. So I'm really, really proud of that moment that I had.
Mhm.
Something else I was really proud of was building a company, Swoop. A friend of mine had a great idea about taking technology and allowing people, to take all these coupons. You go in these grocery stores, you get all these coupons, and allowing them to take all these coupons and putting them in a digital kind of wallet where they were able to actually use that for either savings, to put back into their checking account, or to put into their kids' college accounts. And we built this amazing technology. We were, I think, about 3 or 4 years before our time. It didn't take off as well. We sold a lot of our technology to Rakuten, which has been using it. So really proud of what we did there. And then I also would be really proud of what I did at Pride Media. I took a company that was really focused more on print at the time and took it more digital to make sure that we were like really serving a digital focused consumer and taking, the LGBTQ company like Pride that had Out and Advocate and all these great magazines and really focusing them on being a much more of a digital publication and bringing on talent that could really help the company go forward. So those are some of the things that I'm really, really proud of. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be more. There's a lot of great things that we've been doing at Business Insider that, I keep getting better and better. But over my career, those are some of the things that I would really, really be proud of.
Pride Media was the company I was thinking about, but my daughter, you and my daughter crossed paths. I think it
Yes,
was.
yes,
It
yes.
wasn't Pride Media. So thanks for bringing that up. If you had to speak to a leadership team, this is going to be our last question, but I want you to think of this. If you were a keynote of the leadership conference and you had all C-level people, what would be some profound thoughts that you would want to leave with them as it relates to a younger workforce? The workforce is different. It's not like the people who've been there for 15, 20 years. The people that are there now may be there for 2 to 3 years. What are some nuggets that you would drop for that group?
Wow. To talk, it's really tough when you're talking to a C-level group of people and you're saying what should they be doing and what is out there. I think the one thing I would say to them is make sure your culture is a culture of rewarding good talent, working hard, and people just enjoying what they do. Make a place. It doesn't have to be fun at the all day. It's not like you have to be playing foosball all day, but make your culture and your place a place that people want to come so that they're not having, as you brought up, those heart attacks on Monday morning, on Sunday night, that they are not stressed to go in the next day. That they could come in on Monday going, I'm picking up what I had from Friday and I'm good. I'm going forward. It's just make that culture a culture of learning and creativity and fun again. Get back to the basics of what you need to be doing.
That's so cool. That's so cool. One of the goals of starting this show was to bring together leaders like yourselves and share nuggets across. The conversation was just about, your career and dropping those nuggets and the learnings that you've gone through in your life and building this amazing career. And today you brought out all of that. So thank you so much. Are there any
No.
takeaways that you would want to leave us with before we
No,
close?
first off, thank you for doing these kind of shows. I think we need more of these kind of fun shows that are out there where people are just talking with each other and being real. So thank you for that. My only key takeaway is just, as I always say to people, be kind to yourself, right? We are in an age and things are moving quickly. We're not going to know everything, but be kind to yourself. Don't feel like, okay, I'm not this or I'm not that. And definitely don't, to use that word, keep up with the Joneses. Don't feel like you have to keep up with the Joneses. Learn at your pace. Do what you need to do and be the master of what you can do. Know it really well. So be kind to yourself all the time.
Okay. Thank you so much. On Wednesday, we do our rebroadcast and we'll do a marketing effort behind this show.
Great. And I will put that out there.
We do on Wednesday. So we'll send you a link to that. So we're going to close out now. So hang on. as we begin the process of closing out.
Great.
Thank you for being a guest.
Thank you.
Take the CEO series with you anywhere, anytime. All episodes are now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and major streaming platforms. It's not just an interview. It's a masterclass in leadership.